So how can we take a real life situation and apply a neuroscientific lens to it to analyze it to get better outcomes? Well, when we understand the underlying neural mechanisms and the processes involved in the specific situations, this is when we can learn from it. This is when we can tailor our interventions, our future interventions, to better meet the needs of people. And there's a few different ways that we can do that. And it really comes down to looking at something and picking apart the different things that go into it. So I'm going to tell you what are those different things that you should be looking at, because I don't want to just do some analysis. I want to show you how you can do your own analysis, and I will do an example at the end as well. So what's the first thing that we should look at? We should really look at the neural activity patterns. What's the neural processes that are happening here? What do we think's going on with thoughts and emotions and behavior, and why are they happening as well? And in order to do that, we look at the cognitive processes. Let's have a think about the emotional processes, and let's have a think about the motivational processes as well. And they all have this really intricate interplay between all three of them that affect our decision making and our learning and our behavior change as well. So when we start to analyze a real life scenario, this is where we can start to identify some of those factors that we can then use to influence our future coaching outcomes. For example, what cognitive biases or what emotional regulation difficulties have impacted that person's decision making? If we can figure that out, we can then guide and coach them in developing strategies to address those challenges effectively. We can also look at things that went well. So we can look at things like neuroplasticity and skill acquisition, and we can say, okay, that worked. Why did that work? What did I do? And what have I observed when I've watched this person acquire new skills and navigate changes in behavior? And when we identify these neuroplasticity promoting techniques, we can then put them into our interventions to help us better facilitate skill development and to enhance that coaching effectiveness as well. We can also draw from social neuroscience here, and all coaching involves interactions within social contexts, whether it's one-on-one, teams, organizations, or even interpersonal relationships. And social neuroscience investigates how the brain processes social information and influences social behavior. So when we analyze different scenarios through a social neuroscientific lens, this is how we start to think about things like, what's going on with that social interaction? What's happening with the empathy here? What's happening with the cooperation and the influence? And that gives us a much more targeted approach. That allows us to develop strategies to improve team dynamics and communication and collaboration. Now, the second last thing that I want to talk about is the brain-body connection. Brain and body really, really linked. And our bodies can have a huge impact on how we behave. Imagine that you are tired. Imagine that you haven't eaten for a while. Or imagine that you are trying to do something where your body just can't keep up. You're not fit enough. Or imagine this. Imagine that you are just constantly bombarded with things that just make you stressed out and you're experiencing chronic stress. Are you going to be performing at your best? Not at all. So take a look and see what some of these brain-body factors might be at play in this scenario that you're analyzing. Have a look at the different physiological factors that could be influencing the situation that you could integrate or you could address for later. Like, for example, I had a client once, and he would always turn up to this one particular session that he had with his team really, really angry, really grumpy. And it was funny because I knew the guy, and he was a friendly enough guy. And I remember getting some feedback from this particular team, and they said, he's always angry, he's always angry, always angry. When we dug into it, he had all of the skills there. He was just hungry. That was literally it. He would always skip lunch to go and make it to these people. And he would never take time to fit it in, or he would never prioritize it. And it was literally just that he was hungry. So all we did was made him eat something before he went to see these people, and it fixed it. Like that, it was fixed. So sometimes things can be very, very simple if we know the right things to look at. I would have approached that very differently had I not been from a neuroscientific perspective. I would have been looking at group dynamics and I might have been looking at this person's beliefs or their perspective. All of that was fine. He was just hungry. He just needed a good old sandwich. That's it. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is long-term impact and sustainability. So have a look at things that happened a long time ago, but they're still working. Have a look and try and identify these neural correlates of sustained change and identify the factors that contribute to this long-lasting transformation. And then we can inject that into what we're already doing as well. Now, you don't need to use all of these every single time. In fact, you probably can't use all of these every single time. So again, it's about having the tools in your toolbox to have that targeted, effective, impactful approach and outcome as well. So let's do a little case study and let's just pick it apart really, really simply. And let's do one that we'll all be pretty familiar with. Let's think of a leader he's an executive leader. He or she is an executive leader. He, she, or they, there we go, I got it. He, she, or they are an executive leader and they struggle with connecting empathetically with their team members. And this leads to reduced collaboration and engagement. There's the problem. That's what we want to fix. So let's do a little bit of a neuroscientific analysis on this really quickly. If you've got access to different neuroimaging techniques, we would use that. We would use QEEG. We'd do a brain scan and we'd see what was happening with their performance blocks. We would see what was actually going on with their empathy and their decision-making and their social awareness and things like that. And that would be our basis. If we don't have that, then we can use other things like social neuroscience. Have a look at what's going on with the neural mechanisms that are underlying empathy and social interactions in that environment. And this includes things like mirror neuron activity. Is this person turning up unwilling to engage? Because we've got emotional contagions, and emotional contagion tells us that emotions are contagious. So if this person's turning up and they're shut off, everybody else will shut off as well. So let's have a look and see what's happening there. And mirror neuron activity means that what we observe and experience in others, we get a little bit of those benefits as well. So that's what our mirror neurons literally do, is they mirror what that other person is doing and feeling. Something else that could be in play here is the role of oxytocin. Is the environment conducive to allow oxytocin to be stimulated and promoted while we're here? And in toxic environments, the answer is often no. And when we don't have oxytocin, we're not encouraging social bonding. We're not allowing the right environments for trust and cooperation and collaboration. So we need to do things to inject that oxytocin. And we can also look at the leader's emotional regulation strategies and their perspective-taking abilities as well. And that can help us understand why they can't empathize with these people. If we don't know stuff, same as we're teaching you things here, if you don't know the information, you can't care about it. If you can't care about it, then you won't make any changes about it as well. It's the same thing with your employees. Understand them, know them, care about them, do things that actually make them better. That's how it works. Now, when it comes to putting all of that into our coaching approach, we've identified these different things. This is now where we would go and we would do some things like perspective-taking exercises and role-playing exercises to enhance the coachees, the leaders' empathetic understanding of their experiences. I would do some things to promote self-awareness and emotional regulation. And because I understand it from a neuroscientific perspective, where I'm going to start with a lot of this is through trying to create that environment of psychological safety so that I can get some of that oxytocin flowing in between everybody. Now, without neuroscience, I would probably just go in and work on collaboration and communication and all of these things, and they're great. But let's do it better. the first thing that we need to do in that situation is to get that oxytocin flowing so that we can build rapport and we can build trust. And that's where we want to start with. So I would look at activities that did that. And for me, that would come back to creating this environment of psychological safety that will allow us to foster trust and open communication, because it allows that oxytocin to start to get flowing as well. So that's just one example of how we can take a situation and analyze it through a neuroscientific lens. And when we start to look at some of those underlying neural processes, that's when we get a deeper understanding and we can figure out the right starting point and we can figure out the right approach, and we can make adjustments for our future approaches as well. And we can get a lot more targeted. And not only that, but we can actually align our strategies with the individual's neurobiology, which is going to promote a lot more effective outcomes. And that's really, really cool. And that's the entire goal of this neuroscientific approach. Bye now.